Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we are going to be doing a basic loot filter tutorial. So, a lot of people ask me, hey Dread, how do you make loot filters? Can I have a loot filter, etc.? And we need to make an update. So, I'm going to go through the process of making a loot filter and show you exactly what I do to make a loot filter. So, of course, we're going to create one, create a new filter, right? Now, the first rule that I always start with, I start with a hide rule at the bottom, okay? Hide rule at the bottom. So you're hiding things and then you're making exceptions so that things show. That's the idea of how I go about it. Now, for the first rule, this is while leveling and in empowered monos. I click on, I do affixes. So what I'm going to do is your build, let's say your build, like you want vitality, you want like mana and mana regen, like you go through down these lines of all these basic modifiers here, right? All of these basic modifiers all the way down to ailments, you're going to look for each one and you're going to figure out what ones that you want, right? This will be determined on your build and what you're playing. Okay, so you need to look at the build you're playing, think about, hey, I'm playing a caster, I want this, right? And this rule right here is called the shatter me rule. Essentially, if you see a blue item on the ground, right, and you pick it up, if it's not good enough to craft on, you just throw a rune of shattering on it. That is the idea, right? That is the shattering. So I usually go for more and equal than 4, right? So we see only 4 plus the affix that we want, and then that works. And then once I get to empowered monos, though, I turn this off usually because I don't need shatter shards by then. Now, the next rule that we're going to be doing is the show me rule. This is the rule that I use to show me essentially whatever I need, right? So, for instance, one of the biggest show me rules that I usually do is hybrid health, because hybrid health is insanely rare. Even if you're playing like a ward build, a mage build, doesn't matter. You want to be seeing hybrid health and start building up those hybrid health shards. Now, if I'm playing like a elemental damage over time skill, right? I usually do this one, and then eventually you might want to do your penetration as well. So, for instance, if I'm playing a Void Knight, maybe I want to put a Void penetration and minion penetration on the suffix of my item, right? Like to be able to see them, right? Because they're going to show every single item with hybrid health, and you want to see it, and you want to fracture it or craft on it or whatever. Like if I see it, I want to pick it up, right? So for instance, here, if I'm playing like an Acolyte, I'm going to go down this list and look for which class affix that I want, right? Let's say I'm playing a sacrifice build. I'll definitely put level of sacrifice there, stuff like that. This requires you to have knowledge about your own build as well, right? This isn't things that you're going to sell to other people. These are just affixes that you eventually want to have, right? So this is what I call the show me rule, right? Now, the next rule that we're going to be talking about is the idle rule. Now, the idle rule is a little bit more complicated, specifically with Merchant's Guild, right? So we're going to go down to idols. Generally, for me, I always show all idols that have health, physical resistance, health regen, res, right? All res, poison res. I also show chance to gain more to one hit because this is really strong if you stack a bunch of them. Then you have stuff like vitality, crit chance, and healing effectiveness. Those are the main idols that I always do, and of course, word retention as well, because you want to be selling to those people that are stacking word retention with their idols. That's just the generic setup. Now, what you need to do, and we might just do this right now, I'm going to go down and we're going to look at every single affix and I'm going to determine whether or not you might want to sell it. So, for instance, health on Acolyte idols, you definitely want to sell. Poison chance at low life, definitely a sell. Chance to apply damned on hit, definitely a sell. Damage will transform, definitely a sell. You also want probably healing effectiveness, definitely a sell. Word retention, definitely a sell. Minion cooldown recovery speed, etc. Right? And we're gonna cut here, and I'm gonna go down through all the idols and choose all the ones that I would deem as quote unquote sellable. Okay, so I just went through every single idol that I would deem worthy to sell and buy. This is what I usually do. Now, of course, if you want to look through these and make sure that the idols that you're using for your build are specifically listed, I would heavily suggest doing so, as taking just a blank loot filter and not, of course, looking through it would be a terrible idea. So these are all the idle ones that I would pick up and try to sell, right? So we're going to put this as, of course, idols, right? Now, the next rule here is I'm just going to add a rule. It says show. I'm going to show rarity. I'm going to show every set, unique, and exalted item. This is because exalted items are essentially the end game crafting of last epoch. Eventually, you swap out of rares and go into exalted. So, like for instance, this item right here could sell for a pretty penny because someone might want a scepter with d6 damage over time, right? They might want to buy it and try to craft on it. They also want to see every single. You also want to see every single unique because the potential to have LP on it, and this is also something that can sell. So you definitely want to be looking at every single unique, right? And then for the last thing, you also want to be looking at set items for, of course, there's certain set items with really large roll ranges. So, like for instance, right now, there's something like Fairbor's Persistence, which could sell for a lot if you get a max rolled one, like for instance, this one here, or like decently, right? Eventually, you want like even higher rolls than this, right? But there's certain items like this that will sell even though that like it's a set item, right? And that's pretty much it for that. Now, for the next step of the filter, I'm just going to show, I'm going to recolor, right? I'm going to recolor green. And then I'm just going to show every single experimental item because whenever I'm killing mages, right? Uh, I want to see the item that it drops. So I'm going to put experimental, right? Just to see if it's worth crafting around or something like that, because this is definitely something that could be worth crafting around. And there you go. That's the loot filter blank. It's that easy. Now, like I said, I would heavily suggest making sure that you go through here and make sure that the idols for your build are listed. All I did was list idols that I think would sell and are good to be used, right? So I would definitely look through these idols and make sure that you, of course, have the idols that you want. And then these two rules, like I said, go through your class affixes, figure out which class affixes you want, figure out if there's like a rare affix that you want as well, like for instance, hybrid health, or of course, Ellie dot or something like that, right? And then for the Shatter Me rule, this is for level like 50 to 80 or whatever when you're picking up rares to put on or shatter. So if you need shatter shards, I was definitely look through this rule, figure out the build that you're playing, right? And then shatter everything, right? Like for instance, oh, every build's going to need a bunch of resistances, right? So you're going to like put up all the resistances here and stuff like that. And then eventually when I get to empowered monos, what I like to do, I like to just turn off this rule because by then exalted items rain like candy. So I just, craft on exalted items and look at exalted items instead of looking at rares on the ground. But that's entirely up to you. Yeah. With all that being said, this has been Dread, a quick loot filter guide. This loot filter template will be down below. Please don't use it without actually watching the video. If you do, I will call you dumb and everyone will laugh at you. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Bye.